one framework I have, which I find more and more useful, because, you know, I said early on, I'm not delivering value, I'm delivering teams that deliver value. I think it's part of the, because as part of this division between technologists and non-technologists, and actually speaking of OKR, like let's bring it together. One thing I'm wrestling with as well is, as a business, you can have very, partly in a retail space, you know, your OKR will be about revenue, right? Something like this.
Right.
And then, you know, a lot of people in the company can be easily visible and active towards this revenue because they have a direct relationship with this OKR and this revenue. But engineering, I think, is it's very hard, because the way we do stuff, you know, for instance, I'm giving an example. You know, one of the last thing I did for Sky is build a really, you know, a cloud native data platform that quite big in scale. So we effectively wanted to bring 800 feeds of data in less than a year on this data platform. So I guess the KPI here is, you know, you have 800 feeds. How many feeds have you done at any moment in time? And, you know, that's your progress bar. Fine. The thing is, if really you have 800 feeds and you only have a handful of people to work on it, no engineer will tell you, you know what, let's do first feed and then second feed. Like, what you do is you spend a few times actually building your industrialized feed factory, right? Ingestion factory. And so for the first 3-4 months, you know, the progress bar is saying 0, right? And that's very interesting, because where I'm going with this is speed for us, and even value is not linear, and it's not directly connected to the business KPI. There is like a gap, and I do believe that has something to do with the fact that what you expect. I mean, there is this interesting book that you probably read, which is Accelerate, right? I can't remember the name of the authors, but that's what we do actually in software engineering. We accelerate, but acceleration is the derivative of your position as a function of time, right? So what I'm saying here is there is such a level of abstraction. Where I am now and the speed I'm going now is almost entirely irrelevant to the actual, you know, acceleration I'll be delivering to you. So the fact that I have done 0 feed right now is not a problem. You shouldn't worry. But I understand that for you, like, you want your 800 feet and it's been 4 months already, and you know, in 6 months the budget will be running out, and you know, where are my feeds? But it's not a problem, because and of course, I'm not saying you go internal and you never spoke, but you build this factory, and then what you do is, okay, now a feed is declarative, is doing its dead letter queues, is doing its own monitoring, it's self-recovery. This is good stuff, man. What I suggest is we now hire 80 data analysts, and they can produce a configuration for, you know, 10 each. And that's it. You know, in 2 weeks, we go from 0 feed or maybe 12 feeds to 800. That we have created a space where the problem can be solved at a completely different speed. We are in a new dimension now. You want 8,000 feeds? Give me 3 weeks now. You see what I mean? And that's the thing where, but now how do you as an engineering team respond to the, you know, revenue-driven OKR when you operate in this kind of derivative of your position as a function of time? But also, how do you keep, how do you create the space for this kind of ingestion factory in this story to happen, right? The temptation will be, you know what, just, that's okay, like, forget your factory. I'm really nervous now that I'm not getting any feed. It's been 4 months. Just do the feed one by one, and I'll talk to explain. It will take 3 years now to stakeholders, which, you know, this panic effect is a big deal, actually.
Yeah, absolutely. And the risk is low quality product and low quality code. I remember it still happens in many enterprises that are on the API journey. You know, for some people, it's what is the business case of this API? And so they're counting APIs and they're saying, okay, I'm going to get 50 APIs for this money, or I'm going to get this much revenue with this much APIs. And it's kind of dangerous. I mean, I get it. Like, the business are trying to find an ROI for their dollars, but it gets so slippery, and it can lead to like a stress on the engineer to just churn out for the sake of churning out. And that could be hard.
I could completely agree. But I think when you, I guess what we haven't figured out is you were going into that. What are the metrics we need to put in place? And I think but one thing I'm definitely clear on is and we're going into this discussion actually with some of my stakeholders at Marks and Spencer. Everyone wants efficiency, right? And everyone expects efficiency from software engineering and technology overall. But actually, we got a breakthrough in last week with one of my colleagues when he said, I understand you better. Now you're worried when I speak about efficiency that people will understand they just need to type faster on the keyboard. And I said, exactly. Because again, it's like we engineers, we cannot subscribe to your revenue OKR. We need to take an indirect route to get you there. We need also to enable the long term for the short term. We need to find a way where the scalability will be infinite and our technology will make it cost zero. And all those things you don't pay attention to, but we need to exist in this space. And so I actually believe that at the minute you have a KPI, which is how many story points or anything that's measuring your velocity, you're actually writing off the ability to be in the acceleration, again, the derivative of the derivative. Like you're just in the derivative space, right? And that's fine, but you'll never be surprised. You'll always be frustrated. You see what I mean? Like that's kind of a game over situation to me. That you can manage your way through, but and then you start bringing a lot of vendor, and then after 2 years, the vendor is not what you need anymore. You need 2 years to get out of it and find another vendor, and that's game over actually, right?
Well, and the tough thing is that the relationship between time and then there may be this much time to do something, and the impact of that second derivative could be like magnitudes of orders of benefits that are so not predictable based on the first derivative, based on velocity. And so the challenge, like if you were to look at, like when I talk to like heads of research and development in research organizations, they actually allow for tinkering and they allow for play, and it's so hard in your position. How can you go and tell your business, hey, let my engineers play, let them tinker, trust us? It's so hard. And I think that's kind of like a golden question.